Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Tractor Man 44 and the missus, and we're out here in Bonner Springs, Kansas, at a place called the National Agricultural Center or Museum and Hall of Fame. And you're going to see some really cool stuff here. It's going to be a long video, but hopefully I'll be able to make it worth its while. Take a look right here behind me. I've never seen anything like this in pictures or production of any kind at all. This is a prairie wind wagon. It's a sailboat for dirt. I can't imagine such a thing. As you can see, it's got a headlight right there on the front, which is absolutely awesome. And it's got a steering wheel right here and a set of brakes, hand-operated brakes right there. So you pull backwards on and that slides down into the ground to stop it. Absolutely incredible. And also you actually have a set of rear steerings and a rudder. Come clean and tell me if you've ever seen anything like that before. This is a 1903 Dart truck. Look at the drive chains. Rear sprocket, the whole bit. Claims a 2-cylinder, 25 horsepower. U.S. mail. RFD, rural free delivery. I don't know if these are all restored originals or if they're remanufactured jobs. I have no idea. But at any rate, this is a fine selection of pedal tractors. My favorite, of course, is the Massey Harris 44. And for the ladies, here's a fine example of an early gas stove. It sure beats a wood-fired kitchen stove, no doubt. Though this too is a little before my time. I believe what we're looking at is an old butter churn. And another one for the ladies. Here's a very modern power washer. Now this is a very unique room dedicated to all things hand tools. I've got a friend, Davy Joe in Pennsylvania, knows virtually everything there is to know about anything that you're going to see on these walls here. And he probably has the vast majority of them in his possession and uses them daily in his workshop. But this is absolutely incredible with all the block planes for all the different knives, virtually every size twist drill or drill bit that you can think of, left-hand monkey wrenches, just everything under the sun. Many things I can't even tell you what are. Like that curved plane right there. From kitchen utensils to the best display of irons I think I've ever seen, to serving bowls, pitchers, pots. Look at that old toaster right there. And I have no idea what this guy is right here. That's probably one of the two oldest toasters that I've ever seen. And that's the second one right there. Though probably not of interest to most people, this particular room has at least 450 different styles of barbed wire or wire fencing of sorts. This is one of the really very early Russell Brothers small grater. You can always tell the typical Russells because of the way they bend the channel line around for the main frame. And of course they always use that same worm drive for actually raising the blade. This little guy here is made primarily, I believe, for farmers, you know, and landowners, small developers, something of that nature. It was not intended to be industrial. When you walk over here and compare it side by side with this obviously much heavier, much larger scale and industrial machine. And I have no idea when this would have been manufactured, but I'm going to guess somewhere in the 30s, mid to late 30s. Outside on display is an old Wood Brothers one-row corn picker connected behind a Super M, International Super M. It's permanent display. I have to assume the motors are locked up or something like that. Now walking up on this little Massey Harris, you can tell by the stamped frame it's going to be probably a 20. I don't think it's big enough to be a 22, but it'll probably be a 20 or an 81. But that's going to have the 124 cubic inch Continental 4-cylinder in it. I can't imagine this little tractor doing so much work to wear that drawbar that bad. But this is definitely a Model 20. I found the tag over there on the side of the frame. I get a little mixed up on the VACs, the VAIs, and all that in a particular case line, but this is going to be one of those guys there. Now, some of you younger fellows, if you've never been around a rock crusher and you see one of these at one of the local farm shows, you need to do yourself a favor if they've got it in operation and get right up there next to it and see what it does. This is essentially a hammer mill for rock. They'll go ahead and put in the appropriately sized limestone, pretty good sized chunks, as long as it'll fit through the hopper, and this thing will bust that down into pulverized rock, just that quick. And it takes a little bit of horsepower on that flat belt to make this thing work. Okay, guys. Well, you know I'm a Massey Harris guy. That's where the 44 comes from on the Tractor Man 44. But the 55 is my holy grail. I've been looking for a 55 to buy for probably 30 years, maybe even longer than that. And here we got one just sitting here, just rotting down to nothing. Of course, I can tell by the looks of the engine, it's definitely stuck. It's probably got water in it. It's probably frozen, busted internally. But at any rate, this is a Model 55 Massey Harris. This is a 382 cubic inch workhorse of the Massey Harris line. Not nearly as popular as the 44, but one heck of a lot more horsepower. The 44 had 260 cubic inch. The 44 Specials went 277, and this guy here's at a whopping 382 cubic inch. One of these days I got to go around the woods and pull out all my different plows and just kind of do a little update on my plows. Look at that guy there, that mole bird's busted in half. I've got some very similar. Some John Deere, some Massey Harris, some Case, you name it. I've even got an old rooster comb. I believe it's an Oliver rooster comb plow. Now here from a distance you can get a good comparison between that diminutive Russell, between that smaller Russell and that much larger Caterpillar industrial grader. Now guys, steam was already completely gone just about from the farming scene by the time I came along in the early 1950s. I'm sure there were still some out there, but I've never really been into them at all. We never had one on the place from the time I was a kid. But at any rate, I still respect and honor the guys that actually work on these things and keep them in an operating condition. This one here, I have no idea what the horsepower is, but it's a Port Huron, and it's a pretty sizable unit. But again, I have no idea how to even estimate what size it is. The rear wheels are 6 foot in diameter by at least 24 inches wide. I'm just going to throw a number out there and going to say 25 horsepower at the absolute minimum. Being around steam boilers and hot water boilers my whole career, I have a great respect for this old machinery, and there's something unsettling to me about operating a high pressure vessel with this 125-year-old steel, 125-year-old rivets, and everything of that nature. I know these things have to be pressure tested and have to be certified annually if they're going to be operated and showed at shows, but that doesn't matter because there's got to be a failure sometime, and I just don't want to be anywhere near around whenever something does come apart. This one here is totally in need of rebuild, because if you look right here, I can stick my finger right up inside the boiler, and there's a number of holes all throughout here. And they have it here lined up with this threshing machine. Again, I'm going to call it a threshing machine, just to kind of show you how they would align those flat belt pulleys, run the flat belt down. That's the main input right there, and that's what would put everything into operation on the threshing machine. There's a nice little Illinois, I guess that's a parlor stove they would call it. There's a little stove for the washroom, just about the right size for a copper boiler to sit on. Now Sears and Roebuck was into everything. You could not only buy a cream separator like this fella right here, you could actually buy a farm tractor. Pretty sure on the left hand side is a water reservoir to heat hot water, or to heat water hot, and of course your warming container or warming box on top with the doors opened.
You gonna read to them?
No. So guys, hey, if you're ever around Kansas City, Kansas, or Kansas City, Missouri, this is really just a hop, skip, and a jump out of Kansas City, Kansas, in a little town called, what's the name of the town, Mary? Can't think of the name
Brookline?
of the town. Hold on. Bonner Springs.
Bonner Springs. Okay.
You can always hop on over to Bonner Springs, which is just a little bit, I guess, west of Kansas City, Kansas. And it's the National Agricultural Center, or National Agricultural Museum. And you can see a lot more than what I was able to show you in the video, because there's just too much to get on there. And so, you know what? I think we have pretty much beat this one to death. And so I think I'm going to take the missus, and we're going to try to find a little snack, and we're going to go You enjoy the rest of the day somewhere else. It is Tractor Man 44 and the missus, and we're out of here.
And I need coffee.